Over the past few years, India has undergone a rapid transformation into a digitally empowered society. With a digital population of over 600 million, India is today ranked the world's second largest online market. The country's startup ecosystem has also grown to become the third largest globally, with its entrepreneurs and tech innovators building lasting solutions to solve not just for India, but also for the world. India is also the top country in the world in terms of the number of apps installed and used every month. India's app ecosystem has perhaps never been in a greater position of strength, thanks to the renewed enthusiasm and vigor among Indian techies, innovators, and entrepreneurs to build from India, for India, as well as the world. To discuss India's potential in the trillion-dollar app landscape, we have with us Rohan Verma, CEO and Executive Director, MapMyIndia. MapMyIndia has, of course, pioneered the creation of digital maps in India with the most comprehensive, accurate, and continuously updated nationwide map dataset. And Shreyas Srinivasan, who is the lead at the Paytm Mini App Store, an app listing platform that allows instant access to over 150 million monthly active Paytm users. Gentlemen, thank you for being here and appreciate you taking the time out from your busy schedules. Rohan, I want to come to you first. The Indian app ecosystem has perhaps never been in a greater position of strength. What do you think are the key opportunities and challenges for Indian app makers in the global landscape right now?
Yeah, see, I think we're at this perfect storm moment where we have a sizable, multi-hundred million internet and mobile internet user base, which is fast growing. The demographic in terms of people becoming upwardly mobile, upwardly economically well off, and also aspirational and educated in terms of mobile tech is also at an inflection point. And I think the other part is that really people are realizing that Indian tech, Indian technology, Indian entrepreneurs, and Indian apps are actually world class in global standard. We are nowhere less than any of the international apps that are out there, be it in mapping, be it in payments, be it in e-commerce, be it in any sector. And I think the opportunity there is then that we rightly take the place of becoming the leading apps in our various categories that consumers choose made in India truly, which is best for India, and not just made for India from outside. So that's really the opportunity. The challenge is twofold. One is that all Indian app developers are at the mercy of global gatekeepers. There are now monopolies which have monopolized the internet over the last 10 to 15 years. I think this context is very clear in the last few weeks. But to be honest, from MapIndia's perspective, we've seen this play out over the last 15 years. And I think the US Department of Justice has said it best about how search itself has been monopolized for 15 years and causing innumerable harm in the US. And I think the same thing is true for the Indian ecosystem. So that's on one side. And on the other side, the other challenge is really sometimes, I'm such a strong supporter of the government, so excited and grateful about the AppNirbhar app challenge that we got a chance to win. But really it happens that the left side of the government doesn't know what's happening in the right side of the government. And there are people working anti-Atmanirbhar. It's a sad thing about India that you have other Indians ready to pull you down. They use the example that the British was coming, East India Company was coming and colonizing India, which is the first case of what I said, the international companies. But also people talk about how there were other Indians who betrayed the Indians, the Jayachand story. It's just a fact of India. Without this, nothing would have stopped India and Indians and Indian apps from becoming not just the best for India, but world class. See what China has done, see what US has done, see what Germany, Japan, Korea. So yeah, it's a very interesting perfect storm moment. We can either go up or we can keep muddling along.
Very interesting. Like Rohan mentioned, the global monopolies. Shreyas, I want to come to you and get to know your thoughts on creating a Bharat app store to enable the discovery of made in India apps.
Yeah, I think like we're a land of plenty. I don't think there should be one Bharat App Store. There should be multiple Bharat App Stores. I think that's my view. I fully agree with what Rohan was saying. I think we are in a, people don't realize how important the app economy is to our lives today, right? A lot of people on the outside tend to look at it and saying this is not the most important thing in our lives. But the truth is today, e-governance gets delivered via apps, mobility gets delivered via apps, finance gets delivered by an app, and medicine gets delivered by an app, right? This is absolutely critical for India and people in India to control. We want a thriving market where competition and innovation wins and not just monopolies. And to do that, I don't think technology is a barrier. And like Rohan said, in the last 10 years, we've built some amazing homegrown technology companies. We've built a finance stack like UPI, which is a beacon in the world. Mastercard and what Mastercard and Visa did in America 20 years ago, India's done today, and there are countries who want to mimic what we have done with digital payments here. And we were able to do that because there was no guardrail, right? There was nobody who said, you can't do this, we'll charge you 30% if you do it. We will have our own rules and we won't abide by the rules of the country. None of that happened. So I think there is an opportunity to shine, an opportunity to lead the way, and an opportunity to be a creator, not just a consumer. And it's up to us to fight for that opportunity and to make sure that it's not about foreign companies are not welcome. I think it's about them playing at the same level field as every other Indian company.
Right. Rohan, coming back to you, I'd like to know from you what do you think are the most promising innovations that are emerging right now, given the current dynamic in the app development space?
Hmm. I mean, if you look at it in the last Corona pandemic, what has come out is the importance and salience of offline to online or online to offline. I mean, that is one. You look at communication, that's the second. Healthcare, that's the third. And education, especially online education, I guess. So that kind of covers the whole online to offline and communication verticals. I mean, it's just what Shreyas said is absolutely true. The apps are the gateway to everything. Apps are the new internet. Apps are eating the world, and apps are driving the world. So the innovation will come how well we can build communication technologies. The innovation will come how well we can deliver education in a nice manner, in a positive manner, with positive outcomes, and done positively, even from marketing tactics, etc. And innovation will come from how efficient we can do online to offline, or what is called local commerce and things like that. In the mapping space, I can tell you that the key innovation that we are trying to drive is building a digital map twin of the real world, what we call a four-dimensional map, real-time 3D of the outdoor and the indoor, and that can open up innumerable opportunities in the consumer space, enterprise, government space. We need the support of everybody to use these maps, to use these technologies. We need the support of the government to encourage these maps, encourage these technologies. And believe me, apps and technology companies are co-collaborating with the old world businesses, FMCG companies, vaccine companies, to create what the consumer or the country needs today. So yeah, that's what's coming in the future.
Right. Shreyas, coming to you, how do you think Indian app developers can improve their outcomes with integration of deep tech? I'll do that again. Shreyas, coming to you, how do you think Indian app developers can improve their outcomes with integration of deep tech capabilities?
Yeah, I think before we go to deep tech, I think we need to simplify. I think the success we've seen with adoption has been built on the fact that we've been able to simplify the user experience, right? Whether you look at the apps where any store owner can create a store, share it with the various messaging apps, trade. Uh, Prosperity for this country is going to come from trade. Prosperity is always come from trade, right? And we need to make sure that the app ecosystem increases trade, which means increases services, increases discovery, increases service consumption. As long as we do that, I think it's all going to be positive. Now, whether you want to deliver this with deep tech and AI and machine learning, or you want to deliver it by simplifying how to create a store on your phone, that's okay, right? Because I do believe if we put the user first and say, hey, there are users in various places of India who don't get great service today because the infrastructure is not added up, and we are at a curve, right? So I'm going to paraphrase that question. Say, forget deep tech. How well do you know an Indian user? How well do you understand their pain point? Right? Go deep there. The deep tech will come. Get depth in understanding a consumer, and then you can improve technology.
That's a very interesting insight indeed. Rohan and Shreyas, I want to, I'm curious to know from both of you your views on non-personal data sharing. What should the government take into consideration while creating a framework for data sharing?
I think honestly, I think the government needs to be much more concerned about business models where advertising and exploiting personal data is the key to a lot of some trillion dollar companies. I think that's actually the key thing. My data is my data. I don't want somebody targeting me with advertising, profiling me, and then sharing that. Uh, and it doesn't have to be explicit sharing, to be honest. Actually, what's been happening is these particular companies are profiling us end to end. They know everything about us. So all our personal data is with them. They don't give it to anybody else, but then they monetize it us, and they monetize their customers who they intermediate. So they are not letting anybody else know their own customer. I think the government has to be very, very clear that this is the thing to go after, this personal data usage or misusage, because actually, to be honest, the cleanest business model is offering direct value to a customer. You offer something to the customer who is willing to pay for that. I think that is the cleanest, most ethical, and actually most sustainable business model, because these advertising driven business models, have perverse incentives. They're just making you waste your time, attention. They're preying on the worst parts of our attention craving. I mean, voyeuristic, fake news. I mean, this is what the world has come to because of these perverse advertising business models. So I think really the government should focus on that. If they don't want us as a society to break down, we're seeing what's happening in the US. India is not far behind. Unfortunately, because of these giants. So that's my take on it. Maybe different than others.
Yeah, I think we have a bunch of global examples which I think are a step in the right direction. I think what's happened with GDPR, for instance, right? When it's fairly well thought out, something rolled out in across Europe, where you have a bunch of overarching societal governmental directives on what you could do with data and how you can collect it and how you can use it, and more importantly, to let people know that their data is being collected, right? That's one part. The next part is we need to be aware of the current societal sort of trend India is in, and that's very unique. It's very different from where people might be in America, right? In America, kids for the first time in 50 years are making less money than their parents, right? So in India, it's quite the opposite. Kids, their starting salaries in a lot of cases, they make more money than their parents. So we have to look at our country and where we are very interestingly when we frame data policies, right? And we need to make sure that rampant data collection to drive up DAU, MAU numbers in a global stock market shouldn't be the outcome of foreign companies being here, right? When foreign companies look at India as a growth market, they do understand that average revenue per user in India is muted. We all know that, right? But India is a great way to show user growth, to show long-term potential. And we should not be in a position where 10 years of data being collected is being positioned for long-term growth versus being adding value to Indians, right? So I think we should frame a policy which takes into account the young nature of India, which takes into account educating Indians simply what their data is being collected, how it's being used. Make sure that that data doesn't leave the country. I think the data localization rules is fair, and making sure whoever collects the data, Indian rules apply on that data, because the last thing you want is data being collected in India, but then saying, hey, the Indian company is just a subsidiary of a global company. This data is owned by the global company, and hence Indian rules only apply on the subsidiary, and they're just a marketing company. And we've seen this happen, right? So it's again, fairness in data collection, fair rules on what this data is, how is it collected, and fair application of Indian rules on that data. That's all we ask for. And it's not too much to ask. Europe has done it amazingly well. And I think we need to look there for some inspiration.
Right. Shreyas, while we're with you, I also want to understand from you what app creators can do to strengthen and improve collaboration with the app developer community.
I think developers overall are fairly social. We all have our communities and a forum, whether it's Stack Overflow and so on, where we frequent. One of the projects I've been working on at Paytm is building the Paytm mini app store, right? And that's our way to make sure there is an alternative for the app ecosystem in case the global monopolies decide they want to throttle competition, right? I think avenues like this, I have been an entrepreneur for 15 years. I started out going to conferences like this. I started out organizing open source conferences. I miss the whole open source world. I grew up being an open source developer. I used to write open source code in college. I think we need to bring that community of developers back in India. I think we've lost it a bit, both formal, informal, across various places in India. So it's up to us to build that community back. And I'm hoping that we can make all of our companies, I mean, Rohan's company, Paytm, we can all make a meaningful contribution in bringing that community together.
Right. Rohan, I want to understand from you what, according to you, are the best practices that can be created to sort of create a robust public-private partnership to solve for India.
Yeah, I think you've seen it, to be honest, in the last few years, as well as in the last 6 months. I mean, when the corona pandemic happened, Prime Minister Modi called the entire industry and delineated 7 tracks where he said, to put our country back and to put our economy back on track to deal with this pandemic, what can each of you all do? And I think the response that we as Indian companies, all of us, gave was just phenomenal. So much innovation, so much enthusiasm, so much passion. One, I can give you MapMindia's example. We started from March itself, beginning March itself, before the lockdown, real-time mapping the corona testing, treatment, and isolation centers, and even the containment zones, because we wanted it to be at the fingertips of the people where the nearest testing treatment center would be. And also if they are in or near a containment zone, these are the stressful information. If people could immediately get, they would be at peace of mind. And we started to share this with the government, different departments, different states, with businesses who could plan their logistics, so on and so forth. So I think for every big need that the government, which is trying to deliver good solutions, I think the intent is phenomenal to the consumers, to the citizens. They just have to say to the private companies, come and help us. And you'll find a bunch of private companies in each sector who can collaborate and actually build a stack for India based on their expertise. And then in public-private partnership mode, it can be delivered very rapidly to the citizens. I mean, we have spent 25 years building India's digital map down to the building level in every city. There are so many projects for the government where they have to do smart cities or urban planning, etc., where they give projects to create those maps for that city from scratch. It is useless. It is a wasteful exercise. It takes 3-4 years. Do the public-private partnership. I think UPI is a phenomenal example. I'm sure Shreyas will talk about it, which is about this public-private partnership. So that's my suggestion, that everybody is ready to do it. It's just a matter of getting it done and seeing that through, and we'll see huge acceleration in India around development and growth.
Right. Shreyas, your thoughts quickly on the PPP model before we move on to our last question.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in markets. I think what's happened even with UPI, I think infrastructure is being standardized, and then the market is opened up for innovation. I think that's the public-private collaboration we should look at, right? I think even with our experiments like Aadhaar, I do think a lot of value could be added on top of Aadhaar if it was looked at as infrastructure versus looking at it as an end-to-end solution. I think that's where a lot of these things go wrong. It's very, very important for us to visualize digital infrastructure, to understand digital infrastructure needs to trigger a whole generation of creative entrepreneurs, right? And that infrastructure needs to make taxation simple, needs to make invoicing simple, needs to make payment simple, needs to make navigation simple, needs to make those sort of infrastructure pieces simple, and not really try and build one more app or one more something else at the top, right? Because that, I think, is the private part of it, right? And I think it's going to take a bit of time. It's really difficult for people to understand the power of a simple API, right? It's to understand the power that, hey, building a set of APIs which sort of glued together the Indian market, the Indian constitution, the Indian government, and allowing that to be opened up. I mean, that's going to be a bigger app store than any other app stores you're talking about, right? And I hope that's the view of public-private. The public-private has to be the government builds standardized infrastructure for basic use cases, and then opens it up for entrepreneurs across India, big and small, to write integrated applications on top.
Right. And for my last question, Shreyas, if I could start with you, and then I'll go to Rohan. What areas do you think are going to drive future growth in the app ecosystem?
Yeah, I think first of all, everything's an app ecosystem. There is like everything. Think about it. What would you build today which is not an app, right? Because at the end of the day, your gateway to a consumer is through his phone. The consumer is going to click on his phone to access your service. I go back to, there is a massive sort of opportunity around financial inclusion. And there's a massive opportunity around building digital products for everyone in India. So I know it's fairly high level, but it's important that every opportunity has humongous possibilities in India, because we're just starting out. If you look at what's happening in the US, right? You're looking at mostly innovation happening in media and entertainment, and a lot of top level sort of use cases. If you look at India, I think there's a lot of possibilities at every point in the stack, because we still have a long way to go. So I wouldn't worry about it. I think the opportunity is to be digital. I think the opportunity is to be mobile, and the opportunity is to be an app. Pick anything to build an app. I think if you do it well, if you persevere and put in your time, if you're ambitious, I think you have a good shot to do something meaningful. And as somebody who loves building products, all I care about is people using, right? And that's the genuine value and the reward for it. Everything else is next. The reward is people using your product and people talking about it and people adding value to people's life.
That's a brilliant way of looking at it. Rohan, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, my take is maybe everything, of course, is going to be an app, and there's going to be n number of things, n number of categories, which will be standouts or killer apps or huge or super apps or just time attention hogging apps. I mean, good or bad. I think actually the APIs below those apps are where a lot of the growth and a lot of the potential also exists. It's the less sexy part of the ecosystem where a lot of the infrastructure engine development happens, but a lot of enablement. Basically, what that does is by having higher and higher orders of APIs, a wide set of APIs, for example, in mapping and location, where we provide navigation, tracking, geospatial analytics, or maps of all kinds. Actually, what Shreyas said echoed with me. The power of a simple API, but underneath which is huge power, is exponential, because you could have hundreds of APIs, unimaginable use cases built upon it, which touch the particular needs of that particular segment of consumer. So personally, I'm excited about a lot of the APIs that we can build, that the ecosystem can build to just make app making easier and make it
Absolutely.
simple and quicker for people to solve people's problems. So yeah.
Yeah, I think what
Wonderful.
Rohan said, I just want to add what Rohan said about building tools which make creating digital products simple, I think is a humongous opportunity, right? Just there are so many people who want to do it but don't know how. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent note to end on, and we'll wrap up today's discussion here. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with both of you. Appreciate you taking the time out to do this.
Perfect.
You guys always do a phenomenal job, and thanks for all that you do for the ecosystem, and thanks to Shreyas for being part of it as well, I think. So, thanks.
Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marco.